What's going on, everyone? So, reports came out earlier today, per The Athletic, that the Los Angeles Lakers are continuing to shop D'Angelo Russell, that they are trying to find some type of trade, some type of move to upgrade the roster, send out D'Angelo Russell. I know a lot of people throw out, like, why would you trade D'Lo? He's been, third best guy. Yes, he's had his issues in the playoffs. He was better these playoffs. Maybe he can kind of continue to improve each playoffs type thing. And he is. He's very good, very valuable. And he's kind of our best playmaker, not named LeBron James. I mean, he is our best playmaker, not named LeBron James. And if you trade him, you could potentially be in the market now for a point guard. And it's like, if you trade him for another point guard, unless it's like a Trae Young or something like that, it's like, are you really getting a significant upgrade? Now, there are still players like Tyus Jones on the market, which, if you trade D'Angelo Russell and let's say you get back, a Cam Johnson or something, right? Well, then now you could free up a spot. Maybe you trade D'Lo and something else, free up a spot, bring in Tyus Jones to kind of fill that void as a playmaker and point guard. But one of the biggest reasons why I believe that the Lakers are trading D'Lo, outside of like they've just ever since they got him, have been trying to trade D'Lo, is the concern that he just walks for nothing, right? I mean, there was that looming threat this season, but he wasn't able to find a contract bigger than what he opted into, the 18.6. And so things are different next offseason, right? He'd be clean slate, new contract, period. And so whatever his market is, yes, could the Lakers bring him in on that price? Yes, of course, but does he want to do that? Does he look at it as like the Lakers just keep trying to get rid of me, right? Like I might as well go sign with this team over here, and now the Lakers lose him for nothing. I don't want to just trade D'Lo just for the sake of trading D'Lo, right? If you are going to trade D'Lo, you need to get something that at least makes sense, is maybe a better fit as far as like, players that you need. A Cam Johnson, I wouldn't mind. If you can do like a Walker Kessler deal or a Wendell Carter Jr. deal, something like that, I think, that would make some sense. You bring in another position of need, and then, like I said, maybe you can bring in like a Tyus Jones. Now you're off to the races type thing. But also, there's been reports that D'Lo is amongst players that have basically neutral or negative trade value, which I don't really buy that much, right? I don't really, because, I mean, look, they said the same thing about Russell Westbrook, and we ended up trading for exactly what we needed and only had to give up a protected first, right? But it's early right now, right? Like, all the teams that are willing to salary dump and do all that stuff, right? A lot of those teams are going to wait till the trade deadline. So D'Lo's contract would be much more valuable come the trade deadline, as you saw with Russell Westbrook, right? There wasn't a lot of options on the table during the summer, but once you got to trade deadline, all of a sudden there was like all these different potentials that the Lakers were eventually able to pull one off. But to me, it really kind of boils down to, more likely than not, the Brooklyn Nets and the Orlando Magic. They seem to be the two teams heavily linked. Now, obviously, could there be another team or two out there that just hasn't been mentioned heavily, or, could potentially just take them on as like an expiring contract, maybe clear off some salary, something? Sure, of course. But there have been constant reports that the Brooklyn Nets, as well as the Orlando Magic, both are kind of in the market for D'Angelo Russell. Both teams would be interested in D'Angelo Russell. Both teams even tried to trade D'Angelo Russell, or trade for D'Angelo Russell at the trade deadline. So if there is still some level of interest, then maybe you could pull something off where you can, maybe get, like I said, a Cam Johnson, or maybe you can get a Wendell Carter Jr. Obviously, it depends on what else do you have to give up. How are they valuing D'Lo? It kind of makes a little more sense for Orlando than he does the Nets, because the Nets kind of seem like a team that they're kind of a team that's like on the fence, much like Bulls were last year and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, we want to sell the farm and we kind of want to hit the reset button here, right? We just trade Mikal Bridges, but like we kind of still overly value guys. Like they're kind of in this weird influx where do they finally decide like, okay, it's time to tear it down? And, even D'Lo just as an expiring, because there is an argument that if they do decide to tear it down like entirely, like to the studs, then D'Lo doesn't make as much sense anymore. But he also is an expiring contract, which, if you wanted to get off, say a Cam Johnson, you could take on a D'Lo and his money falls off the books next year. As opposed to maybe one of these other teams where you have to take on, 20 million in salary or something, right? Where it's like, that's not really what we want to do. So to me, it kind of boils down to those two teams. Orlando, again, makes the most sense just because, they have guards, but they don't really have that true playmaking guard. They don't have that guy that can kind of put it all together. And that's why Orlando has been linked so heavily to D'Angelo Russell, is because they value a guy. Like I've seen people throw out, they have Suggs and they have, KCP now, and they have all these guys, but none of those guys are guys that can make plays. None of those guys are guys that you want being your facilitator and being the guy to kind of initiate and run your offense. Right? None of those guys really make plays, even like a Cole Anthony. Right? Cole Anthony's closer to a undersized two guard than he is a traditional point guard. Where D'Lo has shown the ability to really, set guys up. He's one of the better pick and roll point guards in the league. Like, he's a guy that can really kind of get things going, and he shoots incredibly well, which Orlando needs more shooting. That's why they wanted to get a guy like a Clay and a KCP and things like that. So D'Lo is kind of like a perfect fit for what Orlando needs, which is why I think it makes sense that they're targeting. But again, it's very early. Everyone's kind of just being patient and waiting and see. And in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like, a eye staring contest, right? And it's like, who's going to blink first? I keep saying it, but it's true. Like, there's a lot of time between now and training camp, right? You still got like 2.5 months before that happens. And so teams are still, trying to be patient. No real trades have happened. Like, all the trades outside of the DeJounte Murray trade were all sign-in trades, right? So they were just free agents that just wanted to go to, X, Y, and Z team, rather than like a trade where it's like, hey, we're trading this guy for this guy type thing. It was just, so that benefit, that's good for the Lakers, right? But also there's an argument that, like, we kind of could use the first domino to fall, right? Like, if you can get, say, I don't know, let's say Cam Johnson goes elsewhere, right? Let's just use that as an example, right? Sacramento's a team that's targeting him. Let's say he goes to Sacramento, right? Like, you see a lot of times that once somebody blinks, everybody blinks. It becomes like, this domino effect. And so, if that first trade kind of falls, which even the DeJounte Murray trade, you got to keep in mind, that didn't happen during free agency, that happened prior to free agency. So kind of like everyone's kind of on a stand down, right? And they're all trying to figure out, okay, so how should we do it? And then that first one just kind of goes through, right? That first bullet takes off, and then it's like boom, 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 and then everybody just starts going, right? And so that is something that I could see, which the Lakers could then potentially benefit, right? Like a Lauri Markkanen trade. It's probably a better example, right? Supposedly, the Golden State Warriors are in the driver's seat. There were reports earlier today that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they trade him, that they're not like super inclined to trade him, but looks like the Warriors have the best shot to get him. If he ends up going to the Warriors, then all of a sudden that could kind of create this spiral. Also, the setting of the market, so to speak, right? Like, you could potentially get this, like, okay, this sets the market, right? Like the Mikal Bridges, everyone was worried about the Mikal Bridges trade setting the market. But then you saw with the DeJounte Murray trade, no, it didn't set the market, which I said that I didn't think it would, right? There are certain outliers, such as a Rudy Gobert, Mikal Bridges, where everyone just kind of understands that was a very specific to that team type thing, right? Like the Knicks trading for Mikal Bridges, they wanted him badly, one for the Nova connection, also slotting in as their two. Like, there was multiple reasons. So they kind of fleeced themselves and knew that they were fleecing themselves in order to get the guy that they wanted type thing, right? Where that was kind of the same thing with the, the Minnesota Timberwolves, where that was their guy that they believed was the difference maker. So they were willing to kind of overpay for it because they believed that was the guy that would put them over the top, right? And so we'll see with the Mikal Bridges trade. The Rudy Gobert is still the jury's still kind of out on that. We're still waiting to see if that's enough to put them over the hump. They were close. They were very close last year. But, so to me, it's just like we need that first domino to fall. And if that first domino falls, then I think we'll very likely start seeing Lakers being kind of more. I think the trade news will kind of pick up a little more, right? You had the pickup early on because, it's early in free agency, and then now it's kind of died down and mellowed out. You haven't really heard too much. And it's because, again, everybody kind of knows the deal right now. And so once you get closer to training camp, I think then you'll start hearing the speculations really start to ramp up again, because teams are going to want to start to make moves. Teams are going to want to start to, okay, we really don't want this guy going in a training camp, right? Like Portland with Jeremy Grant, or like, Zach LaVine with the Chicago Bulls. All these teams eventually go, you know what? Like we really do need to get this guy off our roster, right? Like, and then all of a sudden, the price comes down, and now it becomes more realistic to pull off a trade. So we'll see as we get closer to training camp. I do think that that's probably our best bet if we're going to pull off a trade. One of the examples I use is like the Russell Westbrook trade, when we traded Russ, right? This time last year, it was insane. The return, he had no trade value. He had nothing. Every team wanted both firsts unprotected just to take on Russ. It didn't even mean, that's not even counting getting players back. Every team just wanted the farm and then some, right? But then you got closer to training camp, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, fine. We'll give you players. We only just want the 2 firsts. And then it was like, okay, 1 first can be protected, the other one can't, right? And then you get to the trade deadline, and then it was like, okay, we got all the guys we wanted, and we only had to give up 1 protected first, right? Everything really changes when that happens. So just, again, it's frustrating. I know people don't like to hear it, but it's a patience game. It's about being patient. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of adding in a player for D'Angelo Russell, or do you think no, you got to keep D'Angelo Russell? Do you think that a trade eventually gets done? Do you think no trade gets done? Do you think they keep D'Lo long term? Do you think no, he's going to end up going elsewhere? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.